This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 57. Welcome to Comic Geek Speak. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Scott.
I'm Kevin Moyer.
I'm Jamie D.
I'm Peter Rios.
We are sexy bitches, yeah!
And welcome to the show. So before we start our show, we're going to remind everyone about the contest. Jamie, you want to remind everyone about the contest?
No, you take a picture of yourself standing.
Who's it sponsored by?
And it's sponsored by Tomorrow's Publishing.
Excellent.
You take a picture of yourself standing in front of some kind of comic-related sign, i.e. Lee Laundromat, Kirby's Cakes, and in doing so, you
have to use alliteration.
Yes,
I love their cakes.
And what else? What else you need in the
And their
picture?
crumpets.
Is you need a sign saying "Comic Geek Speak," and you need to be holding some kind of prop that hopefully goes with what you're standing in front of. But that's the contest, and the prize for the contest is a subscription to either Alter Ego or Back Issue magazine. That's 6 issues. It's a year's worth. It comes out bi-monthly, and it is a hell of a prize. I'm actually thinking of quitting the show and trying for this myself. So it's definitely a prize worth doing, and we're looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. So.
All right, and a quick Book of the Month Club reminder, and we are doing Fables, Volume 1, Legends in Exile, by Bill William. And if you'd like, you can get that from InStockTrades.com for a whopping 40% off. So, grand total of only $6. And Kevin, why don't you tell everyone what we're doing for the show tonight?
Well, for the special thing for the show for tonight, we are actually going to interview Doug Moench. So, who's a great writer for many years on comics, and also had created some characters, and is quite a resume as far as all the work that he's done so far on comics.
This is one for us old guys, right?
Absolutely. I mean, did a lot of stuff in the 70s. He's in fact, the main body of his work was in the 70s and early 80s. He still has been doing comics sporadically, but the main time where he was really focusing on comics was in the 70s.
Well, let's call him up.
A little dial of music, please.
Hello.
Hello, Doug.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Kevin Moyer.
Hi.
How are you doing?
All right.
Hey, we're live on the air, and we're...
Oh, we are.
Didn't mean to shock you like that.
Okay.
So how you been?
All right.
Good. Well, we're here with the guys.
Hello, Doug.
Hello. Hello.
There's Brian and Shane and Scott, Jamie and Peter, besides myself here in the studio tonight.
Okay.
And I guess to start the interview off, we'll ask you the question that we always ask everybody is, how did you get started in comics?
Wow. I had a friend in Chicago whose name was Don Glut. He just called me up a while ago, as a matter of fact. He has, since gone on to write the Dinosaur Dictionary, sold in museum bookshops around the world, and cheap direct-to-video naked lady horror movies. Like The Mummy's Kiss, I believe one of them is. But at the time, he was in Chicago, and that's where I was born and grew up. And he had written a couple of little, like 5 or 6 page black and white horror stories for Warren Publishing. And they put out Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella. And I thought, well, if he can do it, I'm a better writer than him. I can do it. So I sat down and I wrote one story a day on a Monday through a Friday. publishing, just blind, just a blind submission. And then promptly forgot about it until, months later, I get the mail and there's an envelope from Warren Publishing. I open it up and it's a check. And there's no note, nothing, just a check for $125. And I thought, wow, they bought one of those 5 stories. And then I opened the check up, and on the bottom flap, it listed all 5 of them. $25 each. So that's how I got started. I thought, oh man, $25 for a 7-page story, whatever it was. But on the other hand, that was a lot more money back then, and it was something I loved doing. So I thought, I'll try some more, and that's how it happened.
Were you a fan of comic books before?
Oh yeah, sure.
When did you get started with comic books as a fan?
Wow, it's one of those deals where it started when I was so young that I can't remember. I honestly can't remember a time when I wasn't reading comic books. I maybe have 2 or 3 vague memories of a time before I could read. And how many memories do you have before you were 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah,
Exactly.
not too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I really can't remember the first comic that I read. I have no idea what it was, but it may have been something like Uncle Scrooge, or a Bugs Bunny, something like that.
Would you say that at that time, comics were really one of the things that captured kids' attentions, as opposed to today, where they're distracted by video games and movies?
Oh yeah, it was a whole different world. I remember, excuse me again, everybody on the block would come to my porch because I had all the comic books, and we'd all sit around and drink a Coke and trade the comic books around. Everybody get to read them, one at a time. And there were a few other guys that bought them, but it was mostly me. But they all loved them, and it was something really special, especially on a summer after playing softball. You ride to the store and buy Cokes, and then go to the porch, and I dig out the comics, and we all sit there reading. It was great.
That's
Just
cool.
loved it.
Sounds like that should be like a Coke commercial.
Well, or Knee High, or Orange. What was that orange drink called?
There was Green Spot was one of them.
Tang?
No.
No.
What was it? Orange Crush.
Oh,
yeah, Orange Crush, yeah.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
I was a Green Spot kid.
Yeah, that's a local thing.
I never
Yeah,
even
I guess
heard
it could
of
be.
that.
Yeah, it could be.
Hey, before we get into the meat and potatoes, we have to clear the air because there's a lot of confusion on message boards lately and everything. Can you, for once and for all, for the final, just put it on the record for all to hear for all eternity, what color is Moon Knight's costume?
Well, I always called it jet and silver,
Excellent.
and jet being black, and the reason for that is because of the moon. By the light of the silver moon, the moon is always considered silver, and then half of it's always dark, which is black, and the craters are black. When it goes into its phases, parts of it are black. And the reason, excuse me again, the reason he was called Moon Knight was because he was created as someone to fight werewolves by night, and silver hurts werewolves, so his crescent throwing darts were made of silver to hurt the werewolf, to stop the werewolf. So it was definitely silver and black.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate the finality of that because there's so much commotion about this lately. It's driving us nuts.
Well, how could there be any doubt when you look at the history of the character why he was created?
Well, I think that's exactly the problem. There's a lot of.
I must have, beat the readers over the head with the stuff about silver hurts werewolves.
My point exactly. I mean, I know I sent you the links of all the times that I've been, on the internet for the past year and stating all these facts and trying to get this finally cleared up with with the coming of new Moon Knight book and such, and you don't believe the flack that I get from this all going on. So it's getting quite tiresome. I'm losing my energy towards it.
Well, they didn't read the early stories, apparently.
I know, and that's what kind of used to kick me a lot, was a lot of these guys would come on the message board, and I'm a huge Moon Knight fan, and he's always white, and, the one guy always said, oh, yeah, he paints everything white, and I'm like, I'd never read that in any Moon Knight book I ever read, and I always point out.
Well, he is white, but that's only because the four-color printing process of comic books at the time could not print silver.
Right.
So, when the colorist came and said, you wouldn't believe the fights I had, I kept saying, no color on the costume, and colorists don't feel like they're earning their money unless they put color on something. And I said, no, this is a character with no color. He's supposed to be black and silver, so he's black and white. Just leave it alone. It'll be unique. There won't be any other character who looks like this. And, I finally got through it on that.
You created a monster.
Well,
I know. I did notice though that Steve Oliff in the High Strangers mini, the second mini that you did in like 1999,
I
that
have no
Mark.
idea what that is. I did that. Oh,
Yeah, you wrote it, but Mark Texiera did the art, and Steve Oliff did the colors on it.
right.
And I thought that was the first time that a colorist made an attempt to actually color the costume as sort of like a silvery tone. That he used a lot of grays and actually took some liberty into the art to add more depth and color to it with the gray tones to make it seem silver.
Well, that may be. I can't remember. I mean, I remember the story. Are you sure the artist didn't put gray tones on?
No, it really, because Mark Texiera, he penciled and inked it himself, and you can see a lot of times that I noticed, like in his cape, when Mark didn't put any detail or any inking into the cape, there wasn't any wash tones or anything like that. It was just an open white field that Steve Oliff actually went in there and used shades of gray and kind of filled those areas in and took some liberty that way with the color. And to me, it finally,
Steve Oliff has always been one of my favorites.
Mine too.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure they ever even sent me copies of every one of those. I think I stuck them aside, waiting until I got a copy of what was there, like 4 of them?
Yeah, there was 4 of the High Strangers and then 4 of...
I think I only got copies of the 3 of them.
Wow.
So I haven't examined that much.
Yeah.
Got lost in the shuffle.
Can I ask about writing Marvel comics in the 70s, or at the time when you were writing either Moon Knight or Shang-Chi? Were you writing in Marvel's house style, using the old Marvel method, I guess they called it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, literally and figuratively. Some of the stuff I did was full scripts, and some was the so-called Marvel method. However, when I did the Marvel method, being the control freak that I am, it was my own twisted version of the Marvel method. The Marvel method originally, I guess, with Stan Lee and I suppose Jack Kirby. I don't know which artist he first did it with, but it was probably Jack Kirby. And it was often nothing more than a paragraph, or one page. I think sometimes there may have been nothing written down. They just got together and talked it out. And then the artist would go away and break down this very roughly described story, just hitting the highlights, and do a sequence of pictures, and then Stan would get that and insert the dialogue. Well, because I started at Warren doing full scripts, I guess I got tuned into having hyper control, describing every little thing in every panel. On the other hand, I learned that the Marvel method had distinct advantages. I'll get to them in a minute, but to describe describe my version of it, I do it in such detail that each paragraph, even though it is labeled panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, I do break it down into pages, and there's 5, 6, 7 paragraphs, and each one can be a panel if the artist so chooses, but the artist also has the freedom to either add panels of his own or combine two of mine into one, if it can work, and, you know, therefore has a certain amount of freedom that he wouldn't have with a full script. Now, the advantages that I came to see were, excuse me, is sometimes with a full script, when you see the printed version, you hit yourself in the head and you say, wow, this is, the artwork is so beautiful and the storytelling is so crystal clear that these captions I wrote are redundant. You can tell what's happening. You don't need a caption telling you. Meanwhile, on the beach, you know, you can see you're on the beach. It's perfect. And so I would leave stuff out. Or, on the other hand, in a bad scenario where the artist sucks at storytelling, and you get to page stack, you say, but the readers are never going to be able to figure out what's going on here. It lets you add narration or dialogue, which hopefully in an artful and subtle way that the reader doesn't notice too much, fills in what the art should have been telling you at a glance. So, and the other thing is, sometimes you work with an artist such as Paul Gulacy, who's a really good storyteller, and it'd be stupid to not let him do his version of what I've described, but he's, okay, I can do that, but I can do it this way, and, you know, it'll be the same thing, but it'll have a cool little sequential or whatever. And then, if you get a second shot at the story as a writer after you see the art can actually give you new ideas. The expression on a character's face, it might change the dialogue balloon that you had, and now you say, oh, I can rewrite it and convey the same information, but with a different tone, and it'll match the art. It'll be so cool, you know. Or you're allowed to break say one balloon up into 3 little balloons and space them around the art and make it look better that way. So, yeah, I did it the Marvel method, but I did it with leaving nothing to chance, just giving the artist the freedom to contribute or not. If he didn't want to add panels or combine panels, he could do it exactly the way I did it, which a lot of artists did. So, in effect, it was a full script, but then I got to, you know, alter the dialogue or add or subtract captions, you know, so that it made a better meshing with the artwork.
A few of us here have talked about current comics, how the art of writing narrations that, well, basically the art of writing narrations is basically gone in most mainstream comics. Not to say that that's always a bad thing, because there are some artists today that do have some really good storytelling techniques.
Yeah.
But then there are some that you kind of wish, you know, maybe, you know, that there might be a little meanwhile column or back in the Batcave, you know.
No, I like both ways. I like some stories, it feels like it needs narration, and other times nothing but balloons. And you know, it depends on the story, or it depends on the series. With Master of Kung Fu, you mentioned Shang-Chi. Something so vital to that, in my opinion, were the first person thought captions. He narrated it himself, and it was very internal, and, you know, supposedly, you know, Chinese philosophy or whatever you want, you know, fortune cookie type stuff. I loved writing that type stuff, and I don't think Master of Kung Fu would have been anywhere near as good without it. But on the other hand, another story or another series, the narration might be completely out of place, and maybe any kind of a narration. And some, I like doing, Tuesday, 9:37 p.m. Detroit. Boom, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just like a punctuation. And then you get the flowery purple prose, and that works. Like with Doc Savage from the Pulp magazine. And sometimes Conan. I remember doing King Conan or King Cole, whatever. And I like that Robert E. Howard stuff, and I enjoy trying to imitate that style or do a new twist on that style.
Doug,
It just depends,
Doug, this is Shane here. I want to first express my fondness for the Batman Vampire graphic novels you did. There were 3 of them, and I absolutely loved them. They were a fantastic
Thank you.
read.
Thank you.
My question is, when you were brought back on Batman around the time that Nightfall and Cataclysm and Aftershock were happening, did you have your own plans for what you wanted to do with the character, and DC kind of said, well, we have to do this now, and your plans got put aside?
Well, actually, the first time I did Batman was when I went from Marvel to DC, I guess, in 1982. And one of the things I wanted to do was, they say coincidentally, I don't know, was basically Nightfall. I wanted to answer the Marvel reader critics who kept wanting Batman to be darker and grittier, like the Punisher, right? And my feeling was, yeah, you think you want Batman to be a mean, kick-ass rat bastard, as opposed to just a kick-ass, but you really don't want to see Batman that way, even if you love Punisher. And what I wanted to do was bring in a new guy, because Batman gets hurt and he can't serve anymore, and some new guy has got to be Batman for a while, and then show you what a nasty rat bastard Batman is like, and within 3 or 4 issues you'll be screaming for the old Batman to come back. Anyway, I think Dick Giordano liked the idea, but Len Wein didn't, or vice versa. The 2 editors, the top editor and the editor of the Batman books. And I actually think they said maybe I could do it, but not right now. Wait for the future or whatever. And then I got off of Batman, and when I came back on Batman, the first thing was a Legends of the Dark Knight series called Prey, Prey, and with the Lacey, which I think is one of the best Batman things I've done. And then the next thing was the first of the vampire ones, Batman, Dracula, Red Rain. And while that was in the works, that's when Denny said, hey, you want to come back on and write the monthly Batman title again? And I said, okay. And then he said, okay, but this is what we got planned. And he started telling me this whole thing, which was going to be Nightfall. And I said, yeah, that's my idea. And he said, no, it isn't. Somebody, it was some British writer who had been writing, Pete Milligan or somebody, I don't know, who had been writing detective comics, I think. And he was off the book, but they were going to, give him a token payment to use his idea or whatever. And I kept saying, that's not necessary. It was my idea, But if you want to pay the Brit, go ahead,
Blasphemer.
Yeah, and another one of my ideas during the first 1982 to 88 run, whatever that was I kept saying, look, I'm coming here from Marvel to Batman, and I did Moon Knight, created Moon Knight at Marvel, and Moon Knight was direct only, and it was selling just in comic shops. And this is back when that was a huge disadvantage. Most of the comics were selling through the regular distribution. I said, even limited to direct sales, it was selling 100,000 copies. Now I come to Batman, you're telling me it's only selling 60,000 copies. My God, we got to make this sell better. They claimed that after I started, it went up to 90,000, and they were thrilled. You added 30,000. I said, yeah, but royalties started at 100,000. That may be good for you guys, but it doesn't help me a penny. and I said, look, we got them. it's a sin that Batman isn't selling better than this. And Dick Giordano told me there's too many issues of Batman. You know, we're coming up on we're number 400 or whatever. You have to, if anybody, for this to be collectible, you got to buy 300 some issues going back to 1939. You know, and he said it'll never sell as well as a newer book where you can go and get all the back issues. And I said, you're probably right. So how about this? Let's cancel it and start over with a new number 1. And he said, what? And I said, yeah. And instead of doing Batman's origin in 3 pages, we should do it in 3 issues. And instead of the first Joker story being 12 pages long, it should be maybe 6 issues long. And we'll do the first time he meets Two-Face, and the first time this happens, the first time that happens. We'll start all over. We'll make the origin a real big deal. And, blah, blah, blah. And they said, oh, no, we could never do that. We could never cancel and start over with a new number 1. And then, of course, they did Batman Year 1 later, and then they did Legends of the Dark Knight. But anyway, no sour grapes from me. All I'll say is, I think I was right.
I'm with
It
you.
sure looks that way.
I'm with you.
Absolutely.
Hey, all right. We've established that you created Moon Knight and that you've written Batman. What's your answer to people who say that Moon Knight is Marvel's version of Batman?
I don't, you know, obviously I've heard that many times. And to tell you the truth, it didn't really start until I started doing Moon Knight stories with Bill Sinkevich's. And if you'll recall, at that time, Bill Sienkiewicz's style was, shall we say, heavily influenced by Neil Adams, who was noted for Batman.
Right.
So I think a lot of that has to do with the way the art looked and the fact that they're both nighttime characters. You know, Moon Knight was only at night. But the fact that Moon Knight was at night had nothing to do with imitating Batman and everything to do with fighting the werewolf. He was created to fight the werewolf, and the werewolf only happened at night. So I needed a nighttime character. Now, the only other similarity, and this one I don't know if Batman was maybe a tiny bit in the back of my mind, but I don't recall it at all, is that I didn't want Moon Knight to have superpowers. So, like Batman, he doesn't have superpowers. But on the other hand, again, when you're doing a character in a horror book like Werewolf by Night, the superpowered guy just seemed wrong, you know? I mean, you've already got somebody who transforms into a werewolf, you know? And the whole point of that is how that plays off against the normal world. So I wanted whoever fought him to be a normal guy. I even made him a mercenary who just puts on a costume, you know, and uses these silver throwing things because silver hurts werewolves, etc., etc. So it really, if it ended up sort of being a little bit like Batman eventually, I think most of it has to do with they're both at night, they're both nocturnal characters, and the artwork by Bill Sienkiewicz looked a lot like Neil Adams' Batman artwork.
And you also get a lot of people saying because they were both like millionaires, you know, living in the mansion.
Well, yeah, but it didn't start out that way, did it?
No, absolutely not.
He was a mercenary,
Right.
and when he decided, or when I decided rather, to give him these 3 secret identities, it was like, well, what's his secret identity? I said, well, how about 3 of them? You know, and I kept thinking, well, if he's this, well, it's good for these kinds of stories, but then it doesn't work with this other stuff. And, well, how about if I make him this? And, well, that could work, you know. Like Thor is Dr. Donald Blake. Well, being a doctor was good for certain stories, and in other stories, him being Dr. Donald Blake had nothing to do with being Thor or a Thor story. You know what I'm saying? So I thought, well, how about he's more than one thing? And then I was going to have one guy who took turns being different things, and I thought, no, that's stupid. How about if he just poses as three different guys? I mean, he's really Mark Spector, who's got the mercenary background. Now we can hook into international intrigue, globe-trotting adventure type stories, you know. Then he needs to be close to the street to pick up, you know, dope on the underworld. Now, the best there I can think of is a cab driver. I mean, he gets around, gets all over the city, and he can, you know, go into coffee shops and hear the skinny on this and that. Well, that's good. Now he needs a base. And what's the base? Well, I wanted a place where the Moon Knight chopper could land on the roof. Well, this got to be a pretty fancy place. And, you know, it wouldn't hurt to have a lot of money to finance all the shit he's got to do. Excuse me. And then he became a millionaire. And it was only after that, and I got a letter saying, oh, that's like Bruce Wayne. I thought, oh, yeah, it is, you know, because I hadn't been writing Batman at that point.
Right.
I read Batman, and I loved Batman as a kid, as a reader, but I wasn't thinking Batman as a writer. You know, there are a couple of similarities, but I think I can tell you for sure I didn't create Moon Knight to be Marvel's version of Batman. No way.
And I think that's important that you state that, because a lot of people don't realize that you created and wrote Moon Knight before you went to write Batman. So
oh yeah,
it wasn't the other way around.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you created Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night, did you have was that any intention to make that character into anything more than just a villain at that time?
No. In fact, I get a call from the editor. It's okay. What are you going to do in the next few issues of Moon Knight? I mean, of Werewolf by Night. And I said, I don't have a clue, but how about that group, that syndicate or committee or whatever the hell it was? How about if they hire a mercenary to take down the werewolf? And that sounds good. And I said, okay, and I'll try and make them colorful and visual, and maybe give them a costume, maybe not. And they said, well, whoever the editor was, got any names? And I said, let's see, it's going to be a werewolf. How about Blood Moon? And he goes, yeah, it's not bad, Blood Moon. And then I said, how about Moon Knight with a K, right? Because it's night and the moon's out and the moon makes him turn into a werewolf and blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I like that. I think it was Len Wein again. Len Wein was an editor at Marvel and later at DC. So he was my editor on Werewolf by Night, not on Moon Knight, but on Werewolf by Night when I created Moon Knight. So I said, yeah, and then I thought, well, I'll come up with some costume and I'll tie it into the moon, and that's where the black and the silver deal came in and all of that. And, I just thought I created a new, quote, villain for a werewolf, but since the star of Werewolf by Night is a werewolf, anybody who fights him is not exactly a villain. He's almost a hero. I mean, he's trying to stop a werewolf, right? But on the other hand, the werewolf was the star of the book, so anybody who fights him is kind of a villain. So I came up with a guy who was like, sort of half villain and half hero. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and we'll leave it at that. And then I think it was Marv Wolfman. He said, I really like that Moon Knight in Werewolf by Night. Why don't you do a one-shot for, I guess it was Marvel Premiere or something? And I said, really? And with the werewolf? And he said, no. Try and spin him off on his own. And I said, well, in that case, I kind of like to make him a little more of a good guy. And he said, yeah, that sounds good. And so I did that one shot, and then I think there was another one shot, and then they asked me to do him in the back of the Hulk magazine, which started out as black and white, and then it went full process color. And then he got his own regular comic book series eventually. And by that point, he was, quite a bit different from the original Werewolf by Night character.
Yeah, you did very well with putting him in the first issue with tying in what you originally had set up for the character and then adding to that in the origin that you did for the first issue of his ongoing series. So you didn't.
Well, you gotta. None of it was foreseen, so you have to sort of, be quick on your feet and
adapt.
Sort of fudge things, justify things without outright violation of continuity or anything.
I know one thing I've never asked you is about the Egyptian influence, and then you doing the actual research where actually, Khonshu is actually a god of the moon from Egyptian mythology, and
No, I have to this day a fascination with ancient Egypt, and I have a bunch of museum replicas of the gods, Isis and Hatshepsut and Anubis and Thoth and all those guys, and they're beautiful. They're hand painted, and I think that goes back to my childhood when I was taken to two places in Chicago. There's the Oriental Institute on the south side, and then the Field Museum of Natural History. And they both had great Egyptian stuff. I mean, mummies, they're just unbelievably gorgeous stuff. And I loved the Boris Karloff mummy movie on Shock Theater, So something about ancient Egypt caught me from a number of different directions when I was impressionable. It was when I was a kid, the big things, aside from playing softball and riding my bike and, those normal things, there was fascinations with ancient Egypt and mummies and the gods and so on. Then there was dinosaurs. Oh, my God, was I obsessed with dinosaurs. Monster movies, comic books, and I think Playboy came in later. But those were the big things. And boy, did I love the movie King Kong. Wow, it had dinosaurs in it, and it's just unbelievable.
the more I talk to you, the more you sound like me. I mean, I have all these things from Egypt. I don't have the statues like you do, but I've always had a fascination with Egypt, and I have all the old Universal monster movies, and King Kong is by all of them my favorite out of all those monster movies. I love King Kong.
There was an issue. Did I mention American Indians? That was my other obsession.
No.
Indians. I'm just obsessed with Indians. And when we played Cowboys and Indians, I was the only one that wanted to be an Indian. I thought all the guys who were cowboys were utter dorks. Stupid 10-gallon hats and spurs and everything. And here I get buckskin with fringe and feathers in my hair. And bow and arrow was so much cooler than a gun. Come on. Indians were so cool. Still are, not the same, but I don't know what it was. And one of my favorite comics as a kid was Turok, because it was Indians and dinosaurs. And then there was one issue where they threw in a King Kong ripoff. They had a giant ape in with the dinosaurs. Wow, that was my favorite comic for a long time.
Yeah, Doug, this is Jamie. I just have a question. I mean, we've been going over the Moon Knight and all that, but if somebody wasn't maybe interested in Moon Knight, what would you push them to that you've written? What are you most proud of other than the Moon Knight stuff?
Was it? I think it was number 25. Was a double-size issue where he hits the skids and he has to come back. Everything goes wrong. He has a real bad day. I mean, one thing after another goes wrong. I think he loses his girlfriend and his fortune and gets beat up and everything else. And I forget who the villain was, Conquer Lord or something.
No, that was Black Spectre. From
Black Spectre. Okay, is that okay? That one I thought was good, and there was a two-parter in the back of the Hulk with his brother, where again they were playing cowboys and Indians as kids, and his brother turns out to be a hatchet murderer or some damn thing.
Yeah.
And then they chase around in Central Park, and it's sort of I play off the kids' version of Cowboys and Indians with what's going down as adults in that I thought was pretty good.
That is my favorite Moon Knight story that you wrote. I love the Knights Born 10 Years Gone with Randall Spector and Mark Spector.
And I thought the Morpheus ones were pretty good too.
He was the most unique villain that was created for that series, I thought.
Yeah. And I don't know, that one shot that Don Perlin did.
In the Marvel Spotlight with the Conquer Lord, yeah.
Was that it? Marvel Spotlight?
Yeah, Marvel Spotlight 28 and 29. You did the story with the Conquer Lord.
Yeah, I thought those were pretty good.
Outside of Moon Knight, maybe at DC or something, what's your favorite works outside of just the Moon Knight character?
I guess the Big Book of Conspiracies and the Big Book of the Unexplained, and I like Red Rain, the Batman vampire stuff. I like Book of the Dead that I did with Barry Kitson. That was another Batman Elseworlds with the ancient Egypt stuff in it. And Master of Kung Fu. A lot of things with Galassi. We did a James Bond 3 prestige book called Serpent's Tooth for Dark Horse. I thought we did a great job on that, if I do say so myself. And I don't know. I enjoyed Doc Savage. I think some of the Planet of the Apes stuff that I did with Mike Ploog and Tom Sutton, I thought those were good. I enjoyed Weird World, sometimes called Warriors of the Shadow Realm. That was started with Mike Ploog and then John Buscema and Rudy Nebres. I don't know. I've done a lot of stuff,
You certainly have the privilege of working with some really talented artists.
Yeah. I know I'm forgetting some stuff that I like, but what the heck?
Yeah, this.
Oh, but Prey I think was really good. Yeah. That was a Batman thing in Legends of the Dark Knight.
Yeah, I have a total geek question for you about the James Bond that you did, because I had totally forgotten you did that. Was it your writing, or was it Galassi who put him in the kilt again?
Who put what?
Who put James Bond in a kilt? The only time you ever saw him wear that kilt was on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and in the story.
I don't think we did that in Serpent's Tooth, did we?
Okay, then I could be wrong, but I know he was wearing a kilt in one of those that crawled through.
I remember it in on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay.
That is accurate with the Fleming stuff. He was Scottish. He was not English.
Yeah.
And and I'm half Scottish, by the way.
Okay.
So it sounds like something I should have done, but I don't think we actually did it.
And now that you say that, I remember that is correct. It was in the first one, not the second one. But they were both good. I did enjoy your take on that. I had totally forgotten you had done that.
Yeah.
Is it safe to assume that you created Jason Todd while you were working on Batman?
Not really. When I was asked to write Batman, Jerry Conway had been writing it, and he was going off the book. And this was right when my troubles at Marvel led me to take up Dick Giordano's offer to come to DC. And he said, "Wow, perfect timing. Jerry is getting off the Batman books, and we can offer you Batman and Detective and World's Finest if you want that too." And I said, "Great, Batman." Just looking at the wall of all the DC characters, it's like, well, I loved the Flash when I was a kid, and I loved Green Lantern, and I loved Batman, but I think Batman was probably my favorite. And they said, "You got it." And they said, "Okay, there's only one problem." And I go, "Okay." He says, "Well, Robin is leaving." And I said, "What? Batman without Robin?" And they said, "Yeah, he's gonna go to Teen Titans, and we're gonna bring in a new kid, Jason Todd." And I said, "What? Dick Grayson's gone?" "Yeah, he's Robin. He's going Nightbird or something with a new name. And I said, no, it's got to be Batman and Robin. If Dick Grayson's going to the Teen Titans, he's got to change his name. You can't break up Batman and Robin. And they actually came around to think, hey, he's got a point. And Marv, came up with Nightwing, I guess, right? Dick Grayson is Nightwing, yeah.
Right.
And so I got to keep Robin, but it had to be this new kid, Jason Todd, that Jerry Conway had, I think, named. So, and I'm not sure if he had appeared in one issue by Jerry Conway before I started. Maybe not. Maybe he hadn't appeared, but Jerry had come up with the name, and now here you go. Here's Jason Todd, and he's the new Robin. So that's how that went. I actually didn't want it to happen. But, I mean, I understood at the time Teen Titans was hot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so from a just a business viewpoint, it's like, well, okay, I can't begrudge you guys taking Robin over to Teen Titans, but I can, and every Batman fan in the world will begrudge you if you break up Batman and Robin,
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just today's readers. That's an iconic pop culture thing, Batman and Robin. You just say that phrase, and it's never going to be supplanted by Batman and Nightbird or whatever other name.
Are you still reading comics currently?
I haven't read a comic in a long time, but I still love comics. I have stacks that I want to get to, that I want to read. I've just been so busy, I can barely keep up with reading books, But these days I tend to read alternative comics, collections of old newspaper strips, European graphic novels, some of the Japanese stuff, the oddball comics, things that are different from what I've done so long for a living,
So you're not up on all your X-Men
No,
stuff?
no.
What?
I actually, one of my favorites when I was a reader was the original X-Men by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I loved that. But I've never really read Chris's version of X-Men. I know that's shocking, but there you go.
Well, there's so much of it, we can't blame you.
I actually wrote a couple of Wolverines, but and I remember having to read some of the books for research and thinking, how the hell did anybody ever make head or tails out of this? I can't figure out what the hell's going on here. But I guess the characters were so strong and appealing that people were willing to put up with that. It seemed like the stories went on forever without ever getting any end to anything, anything being resolved.
That's fairly accurate. So what are you working on now?
Novels. And maybe I did just sell something to Hollywood, so we'll see how that turns out.
Excellent.
Yeah, we'll see. And they may be interested in some other stuff too. It's an outfit called IDT, and they're starting up a feature film division. So I don't know.
Cool, you're going where the big bucks are.
Well, we'll see.
I did just pick up the Batman Forensics book, but
Oh, yeah?
but I didn't get to read it yet. But I'm looking forward to it. One of our friends, Matt, has read some of it and has nothing but rave reviews, and I've heard that from everyone I read online. So I'm looking very forward to it.
Great. So you found the paperback?
No, I bought the hardback.
Oh yeah, I just got one copy of the paperback, and the note says "hot off the presses," So I was wondering if it's in the stores yet.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So the novels you're working on now are not anything comic related. They're something different.
No, but they're well, they have got one, two, three novels, four novels going. And the premise of one of them is that the ancient gods, the sons of God, of the gods who came down to mate with the daughters of man, and there were giants in those days, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they were real, and they exist among us to this day, and as a matter of fact, they're the secret rulers behind the scenes pulling the strings of world events. Okay, so it's not superheroes, but I mean it is kind of comic booky. You know what I mean?
It's that fantasy, and
Yeah.
So I mean,
and one is a horror novel, and one is a paranormal thriller, and then one is sort of a vampire, but no fangs. It's a blood drinker, but he doesn't bite your neck. What he does is he's got this dagger, he slashes your neck, and then he holds you up and opens his mouth and lets the spurting blood shoot in his mouth, which to me is worse than that's even more horrific.
how far away are these novels that being printed that people can pick them up?
Oh, God knows. Maybe I'll fail with every one of them. I don't know. I am talking to a couple of literary agents and trying to figure out which, see if one of them wants to represent me, and then go through and do the final tweaks on them. The one, I guess, will be published for sure, or sort of for sure. I have a contract for it anyway, and that's with the publisher of the Forensic Files of Batman book. But they don't want to publish it themselves. They want to package it for a bigger publisher. So, and as far as I know, they haven't actually sold it. They just sent out, I think it was 140 finished pages and then a synopsis of the balance. And meanwhile, I've just been going on, I did the 140 pages. I don't know, that's how much I had when I sent it to iBooks with the rest of the outline, maybe a month and a half ago. And then Byron Price, I don't know if you heard, he's the publisher of iBooks. He got shockingly killed in a car crash right when I sent that in. And I thought, oh no, first of all, a friend has died, and now what happens to iBooks, and have I spent all this time for nothing? And but they claim they're gonna continue on. Byron's widow is committed to the company, so we'll see.
Good. I know a question has come up that it started some discussion here of late with the announcement of the new Moon Knight book coming out, and a lot of people on the message boards and on my group have been asking that, everybody says that the best Moon Knight books were always the stuff that Doug Moench did. Why is he not writing a Moon Knight book? Why is he not being asked to write a new Moon Knight book?
That's a good question. They didn't ask me to do it. I didn't even know about it until you mentioned it, so I don't know. I did get an email from Joe Quesada inviting me to, how did he put it, pitch ideas to this editor. He gave me an email link. But I don't know why he didn't. I can only imagine it's because they're trying to get these writers who are screenplay writers or book writers, or hey, I'm a book writer,
That's right.
But never mind. I'm thought of, I guess, in their minds as a comic writer. But anyway, you'd have to ask them. I don't know. Had they asked me, I would have said yes, because I love doing Moon Knight.
And Matt, who also, he loves Batman and Moon Knight, asked me to ask you about when you create a character like Moon Knight, whether it's, whatever character, but you created Moon Knight, how does it feel when you're no longer connected to that character and you see other people take that character in different directions that you had anticipated or thought of doing?
Well, it feels terrible, and that's why I've never read any of the other versions, because I don't want to feel terrible. So I hear from people man, they ruined your character. Man, have you seen what they've done to Moon Knight? It's like I just keep saying, I don't want to know. Just don't tell me.
Good for you.
Well, here's hoping if there is an interest, a resurgence of interest in Moon Knight, that they'll get the original series out in print again, so that it's on the stand, so that your name is attached to it, and that everyone can read, the when Moon Knight was in his prime.
Well, that'd be nice.
I'm pushing for Visionaries. They have, Marvel has the Essentials, which are the black and white reprints, and then they had these Visionary lines that they're putting out where they're taking iconic runs of characters with iconic creators, like Peter David on Hulk and John Byrne on Fantastic Four, and Walt Simonson on Thor. And I've been pushing on Casada's message boards and such with the guys that do the collected editions to get like a Visionaries done for Moon Knight with you and Bill Sienkiewicz.
Wow, thank you.
Not just because of my love for the character, but I feel it is an iconic run on a book. It's an iconic character. I feel that not only with what you did with the character, but what Bill Sienkiewicz did as an artist on the book, how he grew, from the time.
Oh, there's another favorite Moon. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Thought you were asking which Moon Knight ones that I liked. There was one that Bill and I did where, how did I write it? Sort of like freeform jazz. I remember there's a double spread where he's
Swinging
past laundry lines.
Yeah, that was Hit It. It was called.
Hit It. Yes, Hit It. And Bill did a beautiful job on that. I mean, just a great job.
That's a great story too. I mean, it deals with abuse and child abuse.
Yeah, child abuse.
It all runs along that theme of Hit It. Everything that everything you link to that whole story, no matter what tangent it goes on or what line it goes on, is linked to that double word Hit It.
Yeah, I think that was a good one.
That was good. That was very. It really showed the strength. I think you guys really hit your stride in the 20s. Those books. I mean, when you did the double thing with Morpheus, and then doing the bringing back Scarlet, which I loved as a supporting character, and then doing.
And then there were. We finally got around to bringing Werewolf back.
Yeah, in 29 and 30, that was fantastic.
Those were good too.
With the committee, bringing that whole thing back. That. From the 20s to the 30s up until I think the last issue you did was like 33, before you left the book.
I think Kevin Nolan's first work was
your issue, yeah.
Last Moon Knight.
Yep. Yeah, because Bill left the book I think at issue 30, and then I think Bo Hampton picked up, and then Kevin Nolan came on the title as well then, and he stayed on for a couple issues, and then Bo came back and finished up the title when it ended at 38. But you guys really did take the book in a different direction than most comics were at that time. With the stories. That's what makes the character Moon Knight special, again, not just with the character itself, but the storytelling and the stories that you did tell were outside the norm, especially the stories like Hit It and the Black Spectre story.
Well, and it was very deliberate.
Right.
I mean, I was trying very hard not to be like all the other Marvel comics.
And it was very special.
Thank you.
All right, Doug. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It was great to have you on the show.
Thanks.
And look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay.
So long.
So long.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Well, that was cool.
That was very cool.
He was a fun guy. What are you signaling to me, Peter?
Turn my mic down so I can move it.
Just move it.
See, we had dogs barking. We had all that crap.
There, see if you don't want to turn it down, I'm going to make it noisy. I'm going to grab onto this one, too.
Swing.
Boom, 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 boom.
Well, we got the air cleared up on that.
Yep.
No more confusion. You
thought
heard it
that
now.
was,
You can't argue with it.
Moon Knight is not DC, Marvel's answer to Batman, and he's not white.
That's
Well,
right.
he's white, but he's not white.
He's Caucasian, but his costume is not white. Let's get it straight.
I thought that was real interesting about his run on Nightfall. I never knew that, never read it. I mean, back then there weren't many articles about
Isn't it wild to find the things out when you talk to these guys, especially somebody like him who has a lot of history, to talk about? that like Nightfall was basically his idea and he proposed it, and then years later they come back to him, hey, you want to write this, and here's this guy, that's got to be like a big slap in the face. I don't care who you are.
And the retelling of his origin over three, and then all that kind of stuff. It's like,
some great ideas, though. It just goes to show.
It's just, I mean, they weren't ready. They didn't want to take chances.
That's right.
I mean, obviously
exactly.
with the crisis, then they were like, okay, now we're ready to take these chances, and it's a shame.
Yep. I think that would have been interesting to explore some of Batman back then like that with multiple issues to meet every character in depth a little bit more than just a 12-page thing from the 40s.
Right. It reminds me of what he was talking about. It reminded me of like Mike Grell's John Sable, with the way he launched the book where you had some stories and then you had like a 5-issue origin story and then, you had storylines that way. And when he was talking about it, I was like, wow, that's cool. I would actually be interested in reading Batman like that. That would be a good read.
Well, let's hope that, if you're a Moon Knight fan and you want to write a letter to Joe Quesada or you're on a message board, let's get those Marvel Vision. I want the Visionaries out.
That's what I want too.
Oh, absolutely.
If we're going to see that artwork and we're going to see, I want that color back on that page and, I want to see that mood.
And my offer still stands that I've been posting every time I did it, that I will recolor all the issues for free if they put it in, if they do a Visionaries. All I want to do is just have the credit and the privilege to be able to restore those issues to the new coloring and add the more life to them, and I think it would be just phenomenal to see those stories printed in color.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
And I would be, my love for the character, I would love to do that. I would love to see that in print, so I'd be willing to do that.
And quick, give out your Moon Knight Yahoo address.
It's you always catch me with this because I hate the way Yahoo has it set up. It's yahoo.group.com. Moon_Knight. I had to put the underscore because some clown already had Moon Space Knight, and he's not doing anything with it. It's just sitting dormant and has been for a long time. So it's under the underscore. There's a link on the blog, the Comic Geek Speak blog. It says Kevin's Moon Knight Yahoo group, so you can click on there. But I try to keep things up to date. Release new information, try to form discussions, get people to talk about it, and just get some interest going on the character. And
I found it interesting that he said that Moon Knight was selling more copies than Batman was at the time.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Very
impressive.
And to think that Moon Knight was a direct sales book. It was not available from issue 15 up till it ended at 38. It was direct sales. So the only way you got it was in comic stores or in a subscription. So that says a lot.
Yeah.
Just to add to everyone's love for Moonlight, I just got my Wizard and I was going through it. The caption for the picture for the new series says, "Shoot for the moon. In the past 5 years, creators have pitched more Moon Knight stories than any other Marvel hero," which is phenomenal. You never hear about it, but man, people must love it.
I mean, that article that they did last year, I think it was Wizard issue 156, where it was like, you had these top creators come in and say like, I'd love Jeff Johns, Brian Michael Bendis, and of course they had Dave Finch, who is now doing the art on the miniseries The Bottom coming out in February. But I would love to see Jeff Johns write Moon Knight. I mean, I just as a writer in comics, who would I pick? I mean, I'd love to see what he would do with it. I wasn't really impressed with what Bendis had to say. I know he's doing Ultimate Moon Knight right now and Ultimate Spider-Man, but his take on it was like to play so hard on the multiple personalities that it was, to me, unappealing. That basically each storyline, he would only be that one identity. Like for 6-issue storyline, he would be Jake Lockley. For another 4 or 5 issues, he would be Stephen Grant. And it's like, I was like, that doesn't appeal to me. He's not schizophrenic. There's reasons why these identities are there, and there's reasons more so than just to help fight crime. And I didn't really care for that. But Jeff Johns, I would love to see what he. I know Grant Morrison put a pitch in for Moon Knight when he was still at Marvel.
That could be scary.
What hasn't Grant Morrison pitched?
You think about that. What would he do with the character? I'd love to see what that pitch was, to see what he would propose. I mean, probably pretty wacky and stuff.
Yeah,
but
it might be a little bit too far.
It could be. But
I was trying to look through the encyclopedia where Jason Todd's first appearance was in a detective that Doug Moench did not write, but it says it's 1983, and if he was back on Batman in 360 is where he started Batman. I mean, that's the same time. So he definitely developed Jason Todd, if not created Jason Todd. Now, of course, he was doing the pre-Crisis one, and then he turned into a little juvenile punk after Crisis, and I don't think he was writing those. But so
I mean, a lot of things that I don't know if people are aware of, that he did such a long run on Master of Kung Fu. I mean, he really defined that character. It got me to read the book. I mean, before he even did Moon Knight, he was doing, Master of Kung Fu, and the way he would write him was that philosophical. It was like Bruce Lee, but not so amped up, and he had that gentle nature to himself, and living by that philosophy, showing how he lives by that philosophy, but using his abilities when he has to, and a very smart written book. So if you've never read them, I would highly suggest going back and because I'm sure they're not that expensive.
Essentialized yet?
No, not yet. No. Son?
What's funny is that the rumor for New Avengers, the character of Ronin, everybody's obvious choice is Shang-Chi. Who knows who it's going to wind up being, but it's a big rumor. So what's funny is that we both got a Moon Knight and a Shang-Chi resurgence all of a sudden in just a year. So it's kind of interesting. It all stems back to his work.
And that's why I think a series like Master of Kung Fu just screams for an essential, because it's to me it's a little more than there are too many issues for it to be really a Visionaries, because you'd have to have so many Visionaries. But in an essential where you can get 25 issues in a book, you can get that run, and I know I would pick it up. I've never read them. I've wanted to, and I know I would definitely be out there. So you have
and
one
that's
sale,
your
Joe.
Pick from the pimp of the day.
Pick of the day.
I mean, when he was writing the book, Mike Zeck was doing a lot of the art on that book, which Mike was, I think, early in his career, and beautiful artwork. I mean, it's just a really nice book. It's good to look at, nice tones, great dynamics, and well-written stories. It's really good.
You're just sitting there with a smirk, Peter. You're like, yeah, I got this one in the bag. All right. This one is from Kyle. He says, here are some trivia questions for one of your upcoming shows. Should they be deemed worthy and fair? So we'll be the judge of that. Question number 1. In the first issue of Justice League Europe, which member of the League was late and missed their inaugural meeting?
Damn.
I read these, I thought, oh, he's going to get this one in a heartbeat.
Well, let me see. I'm going to say Flash. Just because the irony of someone... Oh, shit.
Wonder Woman.
Oh. See, I was going to say that, but I didn't think that was... She was like...
Instinct.
Yeah, she was in and out of the book real fast.
Yeah.
Damn it.
What was the name of the band that Sophie's friend Stasia wanted to see in the second issue of Promethea?
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm never going to get... I've read it, but I'm never going to... damn it. No, I can't think.
The Limp.
No, I would not have guessed. Did you know that, Scott?
No.
No. Oh, did you know?
Somehow I picked that, yeah.
Wow.
Question 3.
Jesus.
In Peter David's miniseries, Madrox Multiple Choice.
I just read that.
Oh, did you? What saves Jamie Madrox from a sniper's assassination attempt?
Oh, I know. The window is specifically designed or built or framed or whatever to make him look like he's a couple inches to one side or the other.
A window made of refractive glass that makes him look 2 inches to the left of where he really is.
All right. Are you going to take that? Is that
Absolutely.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
definitely an
that's
answer.
absolutely.
Shoo!
Pull that one out. Thank goodness
Thank
you
God I
just
just
read
read that. So I got 50 cents to the jar.
All right, he says, keep the shows coming. They're the next best thing to blabbering to my coworkers about issues I just picked up that they clearly and overtly care nothing about.
Sounds like most of our spouses and family over here, too.
You guys inspired me to finally get online and start writing about the comics that I love. I don't come close to the encyclopedic knowledge of you guys or most of your listeners, I'm sure, but nonetheless, I'm a comic book fan trying to leave his mark the only way I know how. I look forward to your next show. Thanks. And he has a link to his blog. It's planetablaze.blogspot.com. So, Kyle, thank you. And a valiant effort. So close. So close.
But we don't have to send anything out.
No, we don't. We're saved. Pretty soon we're going to have to start. If you send a Geek of the Day entry, please include $2 and
do we want to do a quick event again? We started this last episode.
Oh, I thought you were going to save them for future episodes.
Well, this is a future
This
episode.
is a future episode.
Oh shit! It is. Time for bed.
The future sneaks up on
Oh
Brian.
yes.
Brain freeze.
And we have a time to do just one.
Yeah,
just
go
one
ahead,
easy
go
one.
ahead.
The next one in the list, we did Legends and Millennium in last episode.
Sweet.
Is Invasion. 3 issues. Keith Giffen, a slew of artists: Bart Sears, Todd McFarlane, Keith Giffen, Kevin McGuire.
Yeah, it seemed like the book that nobody actually wanted to actually complete.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
every issue had like 2 or 3 different artists and all that.
They were all 3 issues were kind of like almost like 80, 64 pages, 80 pages or something like that. They
Yeah, I
were
think it
huge.
was like 48 pages each.
Right.
It's like an annual size.
And the idea behind that, obviously, Invasion. It was 8 to 10 aliens grouped together and decided that, you know what, this pesky little Earth and their little superheroes, they got to go. And there was something that they found out that was unique to Earth that's not unique anywhere else. One of the things is that on Earth you have different ethnicities or different, like the aliens were all the same. Dominators, all the same. Khunds, all the same. Thanagarians, all the same. They looked alike. There was no deviation. And on Earth, that wasn't the case. And also that Earth spawned these, massive amounts of superpowered beings, which was not familiar, anywhere else in the galaxy. So they said, well, we can't have this, and they went to invade Earth, hence the name. And they come to Earth. They smack them around a bit. The heroes rally behind Captain Atom and Superman and all those, and eventually they win the day. 3 issues. It did cross over into a bunch of little books. Not so much that you had to read them. They just had like little symbols that said that it was part of the event. But that was something that Keith. It was probably Keith Giffen. I'm sure there's another writer there that I'm forgetting. And the idea was to, I guess, they wanted to kind of explain why there was such a thing called a superhero, and they came up with this metagene thing. It's almost very similar to metachlorians and
You're killing me now.
in Star Wars, with the whole Force thing. I
You're
know.
killing me.
It's like, you always have to have a reason why things exist, whereas you don't want to just let it be. And all of a sudden, people were speculating years later that Green Arrow's a metahuman and Deathstroke's a metahuman. It's like you couldn't just be a regular human that was enhanced, and that aspect of it kind of bugged me. But the series was kind of fun. It wasn't so heavy. It was just kind of just a bunch of aliens attacking all over the world, and heroes just went and fought them. I can't say there were many lasting effects. There were some things that they did with the Thanagarians, but as far as lasting effects like Crisis or Legends, there really wasn't too much.
And for me, somebody who had just kind of come into the DC universe, when this happened, it introduced me to a lot of the space races I didn't know, because I really wasn't, and I'm still not really into a lot of the cosmic books, and it gave me more of a history and more of a background. It is also one of the first times I bought one of the weird like crossover type things. They actually did a copy of the Daily Planet, came out with Invasion on it.
That's right. I have
And
that.
I bought that. I can remember buying that when that came out. And I got it home and I was like, what the hell?
Well, the big series that came out of that is Legion 89. Legion with all the periods in between. It was an acronym. And it was a way for Keith Giffen and Alan Grant and all the creators to establish the Legion of Superheroes a millennia earlier during the current DC universe. So they had all these different aliens that banded together, created this police force, and they had strong ties to Legion of Superheroes in the 30th century. And they're actually, a lot of Invasion is, the way it kind of ties to Infinite Crisis right now is just, there's, we got the resurgence of Legion in Rann-Thanagar War, and also, or not Rann, in the Adam Strange miniseries. And there's a big space thing going on right now, which will tie into Infinite Crisis. I don't know exactly how, but it seems like another kind of invasion.
Yeah, and that's a book actually that and I know Shane's looking at it right now, but in Wizard, I had seen it. that they had made mention of about possibly making a comeback type deal, or a
Legion?
book worthy
5
of making a comeback. Yeah.
5 reasons to bring back Legion, and
Nice.
one of the things is recent appearances in Adam Strange and Rand Thanagar War showed why there's still love for Legion.
Yeah, and it was a great series. I mean, it lasted 70 issues until it changed into something else after 0 Hour, Rebels. Yeah, which kind of went nowhere. And for my tastes, it was kind of neat because they played off of, you had the Green Lantern Corps, which was like this almost militaristic police force, and now you had Legion, who they hired themselves out.
And I was telling you earlier that I had been at the show in Philly this past weekend, and I had been at the 8 for $1 box.
I bet you
I got a whole mess of those 8 for $1.
Yep, you will
so
find
they're,
those.
They're out there. Good read. Get them. And I'll let you know what I think.
And gorgeous Barry Kitson artwork, like early Barry, maybe not so early, but mid-early, and in his very raw, very prime stuff. It's very good.
Yeah. And just a quick shout out because everybody seems to be listening to us when we tell them to read stuff, and I can't remember who it was. It was one of our listeners from across the pond. Was telling us about Jack Staff, how that was such a good book, and I found a couple of those in a 50-cent box. So I'm just shout out to him. I'll be reading them, and I'll let you know what I think about them. They look pretty good. And I also found a copy of Mike Norton, another friend of our show, Waiting Place. I found an issue of that.
Wow.
It was just one issue. I looked through all the rest of the box, hoping to find more, but the artwork looked really nice. I looked at it, and it's in black and white. It looked really nice. So.
Cool. So that's our Invasion wrap-up, and we'll come back to it again.
Next episode.
Future episode.
In a future episode.
Hey, we got a Geek of the Day from Jorge Zevallos in New York City. It's an audio Geek of the Day. So I'm going to play that now. I have not listened to it yet, so we'll see how it goes.
It's in Spanish.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen, at Comic Geek Speak. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Jorge Zevallos. I come from New York City, 19 years old. And I just want to say a comment. I think that comics in general, I mean, I don't know what's the actual fact on if it's doing well, it's a booming business, or it's not. I mean, I don't even know. But I think it could do a little better in terms of the understanding of the work that actually goes into comics from the storytelling side. I think there needs to be more intelligent conversation, not so much about even the actual writing aspect, or even the artistic style or tightness and stuff like that. I think there should be even more emphasis on the mechanics of the sequential side to it, because I think that's a very, very important aspect. I'm not saying that's the most, but I think it's just as important as the writing. And I think that the media out there right now, like Wizard and maybe other magazines or other websites, concentrate on the little things. And I think it's kind of silly and dumb sometimes that they talk about the latest sexy vixens in comics. No woman will ever be sexy that's two-dimensional on a piece of paper. It's ridiculous, especially since it looks extremely fake. But I think it's, if I go up to an artist my age, 19, they're probably going to be drawing manga, probably, or Japanese, which I have no problem with. But the point is that some of them are even prejudiced. If something is not drawn or made in Japan, if it's not Japanese manga, they're not going to look at it, which I think is really, really stupid. I think anyone should accept all kinds of comics from wherever it comes from, and there shouldn't be any kind of prejudice, and it hurts me that I know in my head that if I go to a comic artist and ask them, do you know who Alex Toth is? They're not going to know. Do you know who Mobius is? Maybe they'll know. I'm not sure, Guys like that. I just found out about, what's his name? Gene Colan, and I think he's a fantastic artist, but it's sad that, they're not going to know. They're not going to know. And when the ages grow up and, new generations come up, I think manga is going to be such an influence. It's going to be out of control. But I just want to say, that I think there needs to be more emphasis on the core storytelling of a comic and how it's made so that people understand the importance of economy and of, of keeping up with speed and how difficult it is. So that's my 2 cents. This is Jorge from New York, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jorge.
For being 19 and having such insight, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, not that, no, but I mean, for comics, to know who Mobius.
Right, to know
Alex
Mobius.
Toth?
Yeah.
Alex Toth.
Come
yeah,
on,
Gene
I mean-
Colan. I mean, that's what he says. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
And ties into what Doug Moench was saying about a good artist will let, will have good storytelling and let a writer kind of back off a little bit, and or you need to write more if the storytelling is bad. And
Right.
some of the hottest artists on Wizards' top 10 lists, their storytelling is not that
No.
good.
No.
Yeah, when things really, really jump from panel to panel, and you're not exactly sure what happened in between, that means their storytelling is not working properly.
I mean, whether you love the old stuff or you hate it, I don't care. But you got to look at Will Eisner's work on the Spirit. Jamie's a big fan of, or a big proponent of all that. So is Alex. And Eisner has even written a couple books about sequential art. It's almost like watching a movie. I mean, he may go to, it may be a far shot of a guy standing on the chimney. I'm just thinking of one of the things I remember seeing. But then as you read each panel, it moves in, but it's at a slightly different angle, and then it moves in again, and it's like it's storytelling. It's perfect.
It's just utterly amazing what he would do with just like an opening shot of the book, and it would say the Spirit, but it would be the Spirit written in buildings. He would have buildings that would say the Spirit, or the Spirit down the side of a building, using things in the building, stuff hanging out of the window or something, or a railing, or this that would say the Spirit. And it's just amazing when you sit back, and I've gone back and I've looked at this stuff with a more of a keener eye. And before, when I first read it to when I'm reading it now, and I'm just utterly amazed that he was doing this in the 40s and the 50s, and people nowadays can't even come close to that kind of storytelling.
I mean, it's almost like some artists forget that they're doing comic books. Like, the few of us here had this argument off the air about photorealism in comics nowadays, and it's like, okay, are we reading storyboards or are we reading comics? No, we're reading comics. We're not, and unfortunately, there's a whole mentality of, let's create a comic book so that maybe we'll get the movie deal. I mean, that's very prevalent with indie books and creator-owned books, and I understand you want to make your money, but they are still comic books first and foremost. And some of these artists nowadays, they're just whipping open FHM magazines and tracing and drawing, and it's like, where's the storytelling in that, and where's the comic book in comic book? I mean, I feel very strongly about this, and I'm glad that he brought it up.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was attempting to publish Z, I had started writing a few backup stories for future issues that never happened, but they were going to be like 8-page stories or whatever. And when I was writing them, I was playing a movie in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how professional comics are written when the scripts, but I was saying, this panel has this shot, this panel has this shot, this panel has this shot. I sent it off to the artist, and he did great work. But I wasn't even giving him a chance. I don't know whether he had good storytelling technique or not, because I was telling him exactly what went into each panel, because I had a vision in my head, because I was playing a movie, and I was transcribing that movie onto paper. And to me, that's what an artist is supposed to do.
Right.
Did
I thought one of the experiments that Marvel did, that Nuff Said month,
Right.
where they took out all the dialogue and it was just supposed to be totally art, and the art was supposed to be
Storytelling,
enhanced.
yeah.
It's supposed to show the storytelling. What they did in the back of those books is they provided script pages.
Right.
And Christopher Priest, on his Black Panther, he was very much that way. Cut shot. Angled. He spoke in kind of like movie terms in a way, and maybe it was just for that episode that issue that he had to, but I could probably see his other scripts are probably like that as well.
There are a lot of writers that do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
bird's eye view, worm's view.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of scripts where writers will basically describe to you panel by panel. Bendis goes to the fact where he actually does like little thumbnail layouts. So he tells you in detail what's in that panel, and then he also kind of shows you as well. I mean, I think you can go a little too far with that.
Right.
But then again, it's
You get
that whole
what
thing.
you want.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
but then, are you limiting, like what Doug also said too, is where you can get an artist on there and he can add something to it.
Sure.
He can take 2 panels that you may have described and think, well, I can do it in 1 panel and do something totally cool with it. And then, the writer gets it back and goes like, wow, I didn't think of that, and I can take advantage of that. So
It was Keith Giffen that did that too, isn't it? Where he puts so much into
He
the
always-
storyboards.
Yeah, he creates little mini comics.
Yeah.
That's how he writes his scripts.
that's how Bendis does.
One of the ones they did an Avengers #1 rough cut when Kurt Busiek and George Perez took over. And they released issue 1, and then they did a rough cut of #1, what they called a rough cut. It was all black and white, and in the back they had Busiek's script. And it was neat to see what Busiek wrote and then what Perez drew. It was like, whoa, sometimes he totally strayed. Most times he was right with it, but man, it was the right choice, and storytelling. These are comic books, you got to be able to tell the story.
Cool.
So kudos for that Geek
That's
of
a
the
good
Day.
way to end the show.
Sure.
All right. To send us your own Geek of the Day or a Stump the Rio submission, send that to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Please visit our blog, comicgeekspeak.blogspot.com, and while you're there, please click the Google ads. For information about some other comics podcasts, you can go to comicspodcast.com. Big thanks to Bob at GameCircuit.net for hosting all the files. Vote for us at Podcast Alley, pretty please, and subscribe to us using iTunes. And if you would like, you can get a T-shirt from us for $10, including shipping off of our blog. And is Kevin?
And a big thanks to Doug Moench for joining us on the show and providing
absolutely.
a wonderful interview.
That was fantastic. As always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time. See you next time.